Hey everyone, and welcome to another lesson on arpeggios. Today I want to clear up stuff about augmented chords and diminished chords so that we can have a clear understanding of what they mean. Now let's start with augmented chords. Augmented chord is a pretty simple concept in that it is a major chord, but we simply sharpen the 5, make it a half step higher. So, say we are in D major, and we take 1, 3, 5, and we simply take the 5 up a half step. That's it. It's as simple as that. Now what's kind of strange about it is this. Let's take the first shape, which is the root position, and we sharpen the 5 to get the augmented. Now let's go into the first inversion, and let's sharpen the 5 again. See that? Let's go to the third place. This is the second inversion. Let's augment the 5. See what's happening? All the shapes all of a sudden become the same shape. That is because this chord is a symmetrical chord, meaning that within an octave, each note is the same distance from one another. I'll show you two in E so that it might be a bit easier to understand. Here's the E root, right? Let's play just the E major triad like this. This is the augmented. See that? We go up 4 frets, then we go up 4 frets again, then we go up 4 frets again, and this is the E note again. So the whole thing is symmetrically divided into equal portions of 3. Each note is 4 notes separate from one another. Makes sense? What's kind of mind-blowing about that is we can take any augmented shape, Say something like, here's a D major, here's a D augmented. We can move the shape anywhere we want, 4 frets apart. And the same thing applies for every single shape on every string. That is weird. Right? So an augmented chord is a weird thing, and it's not that common. But it has a very distinct angular sound that you might be into. Here are some ways that you can write down an augmented chord. There isn't really a specific standardized system that is the one true right way to write that chord down. There are many ways. Now let's talk about the diminished chord. It's a bit of a different thing. At first I'll show you the triad. If we were in C major, then you can find the diminished triad starting on the B. And all that the diminished triad is a minor chord, but the 5 is a half step lower, meaning that it's a flat 5. That's it. That's what a diminished triad is. However, we can extend that diminished, and we can extend it in 2 ways. And that is what can create some confusion at times. Let's take the B again in the C major. Now, if I extend it to a 4-note arpeggio, and stay within the C major scale, it looks like this. Now a common grip for that can be this. Now this chord has a few different names. One of them is called a minor 7 flat 5, which makes sense, doesn't it? It is a minor 7 chord, but the 5 is down a half step. Another name for that would be a half diminished 7 chord. Colloquially, we just might call that a half diminished. Now, I said that there were two ways to extend the chord. The next way is this. See that instead of the flat 7 here, we actually have it a half step down. Now this is what is called a double flat 7, which is a silly name, but it's there just so that the triadic structure of a chord remains intact. We can also call it a 6, it's fine. It's the same notes. Either way works fine. But this chord looks like this then. This is what we call a diminished 7 chord. It's a pretty different sound. And what usually happens is that when we say diminished, this is what we're talking about, the diminished 7. Now let's look at the diminished arpeggios on the top 2 strings. Let's stay in D. So here's a minor. That's a D minor arpeggio, right? And we just flat the 5. Okay, it's as simple as that. Let's go to the next one. Here's the minor first inversion. And we flat the 5. And here is the second inversion. And we flat the 5. Okay, so those shapes might not look all that familiar. However, if we extend the arpeggio to a fully diminished arpeggio, meaning the diminished 7 arpeggio, then we get to use 4 notes, and we can use the same symmetrical way that we did before with the augmented chord. So I'll show it to you in E again. Here's the E minor, and here is the diminished triad. And now we extend it to the diminished 7. And what happens now is it turns into a symmetrical situation again. This time we have 4 notes per octave. And since it's symmetrical, we can take this diminished arpeggio shape. We can move it up by 3, move it up by 3 again, and go on till forever. This of course applies again to any shape that you know, but it has to be that diminished 7 arpeggio shape. It can't be the minor 7 flat 5. It has to be the diminished 7. And that is a big part of Marty's vocabulary as well. For instance, one shape that he uses is this. It's just the one shape and we slide down. Now, as to where we can use those is a bit of a different thing. Of course, we can use them on the chords themselves. Where there's a B minor 7 flat 5, we can use that just fine. And when there's a B diminished, see that? I used it colloquially. And when there's a B diminished 7, we can use that. There are other places where we can superimpose a diminished 7 on top of it, but we'll leave that for another day. It's a bit of a complicated area. So that's it for this time. I hope this cleared things up, and see you next time.